You're listening to the Full Court Press with your host, Drew Duncan. Don't you dare touch that dial.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. I am your host, Drew Duncan. You guys are checking me out live from the K-Sun Studios out here in Wichita, Kansas. As always, you can be part of the program in multiple facets. You can call me up 316-351-7397. And if you're on Instagram, Twitter, and or Facebook, you can also reach me there at DrewDuncan83. Everybody, please welcome a guy who by the age of 24 was already a jet captain, a black belt, a NASCAR driver, and he had a ton of cash sitting in his bank account. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Robert Bakke. Thank you so much for taking time to be on the program with us today, sir.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and hello to all of your audience. It's a pleasure to visit with all of you.
First, I got to say, you have lived life. You don't appear to be showing any signs of slowing down. What keeps you going when you wake up in the morning?
Well, you know, sometimes you just feel a call on your life, like there's something you're supposed to accomplish while you're here. And that's really what drives me. In fact, I chuckle when somebody reads my resume because let me give you just a quick background. I grew up as a little kid believing that I was put on this planet to race cars for a living, and everybody laughed at me, and that was just never something to be encouraged. And I grew up through junior high and high school. I was that skinny kid in school. I was picked last in gym class every single day. I was just a bone-thin klutz, not an ounce of self-confidence. And in fact, to give you a profile on that, I graduated from high school 5'10", 130 pounds.
Oh.
All right, just literally a skeletal structure. And not racing cars for a living and ending up in college, I had no clue what I was going to my life, and it stunk. I hated feeling like that. And then for a long list of reasons, none of them were spiritual, I got really upset with religious people, and I decided to read the New Testament for myself. This is not a religious deal. I'm not into religion. I was just tired of being told everything that didn't make sense. And you know what? I read the New Testament, and that was the first time I believe I ever felt God talking to me. And he literally said, I want you to prove all things are possible, because that's what it said. It said that if you would believe, that everything would be possible for you. And that's really what launched my entire life. I pivoted at that moment. I began my quest for a black belt in karate. And you know, Andrew, to all of your listeners, this is so important. When I said, I'm going to get a black belt, everybody laughed. They laughed at my desire to race cars for a living. They laughed at my becoming a black belt. They said I was too mean. They said I was too fragile. Can you imagine as a guy being told you're too fragile? And that I'd get punched once, and yeah, I hated it. And so I learned that when you set big goals, and whether you believe in God or not, you know, 92% of America knows there's something out there that created all this. But when you believe that big, giant, creative being is telling you to do something, you just have to man up and do it. And what happened was I got a black belt in Shotokan karate. I became regional champion. I proved them all wrong. And my entire life's work, flying myself into the left seat of a jet, I have been on a life's quest to prove to people that nothing is impossible. If it's in your heart and you have the guts to walk into it, that's exactly what will happen. You'll see a miracle come right through your hands.
You know, I think that there's a lot of kids, though, that when they're 17, 18, 19 years old, you don't really know what you want to be. And even if you do know, not everybody knows how to obtain it. What do you tell somebody who just walks around and people look at him and go, you know, dude, you're just kind of floating through life. You don't really know what's going on. You know, I mean, think about it. In some other cultures, you're not even considered a man until you are 33 years old. There's got to be a reason for that. What do you tell parents who have kids that are going through that, and what do you tell the kid who's going through that?
It's all fear-based. This is interesting to me because nobody got pushed around more than I did, and I understand the fear of other people. Did you know there's a survey? People can Google it. It's called Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it was a survey compiled by interviewing hospice patients, which means these people are never coming out of the hospital. The number one regret of a hospice patient was that they wish they had the courage to have lived a life true to themselves and not the life someone else had expected of them. And what that says is the majority of people know that in their gut they're supposed to be doing something different, but they can't get the encouragement that they need, or they get laughed at and they give up on it and they wander aimlessly. And so for all the people that I know that can hear my voice right now, look at it this way. If you had all the time and all the money in the world, suddenly you had no limitations, nothing could stop you. What would your life look like? Take the chains off your imagination and let your imagination run wild. That's going to open the door. And what will happen is you will see very vivid pictures for your life, and you'll have these aha moments. And you'll know those are the right ones because I'm a living example of this. People will laugh at you and tell you it can't be done. But I'm here to tell you that it can be done. You know, David never slayed Goliath. That's the biggest misteaching we all grew up with in Sunday school. David didn't slay Goliath. God did it. But he did it through David because David knew he was told to take on that great big 9-foot monster. And that's what will happen if you will just walk into that desire in your heart. Stop listening to the laughter. That's where you're going to see your biggest and brightest life. I'm a living example of that.
Robert, you may be a living example of some other things. For instance, in NASCAR, at only age 24, you were already living by the seat of your pants, being a jet captain and being in NASCAR. And if we may just kind of momentarily switch gears here, thinking about NASCAR right now, there may be a lot of people laughing at them. As of last weekend, ratings are down 33%. It's not looking good. Everybody seems to have an opinion on what should be done. I'm asking you, do you think that NASCAR has reached the point of no return, or do you think that there is salvation that they can find in getting their ratings back?
Well, one of the things NASCAR has to do is lower their ticket prices, and that's probably true with a lot of sports. But you know, I'm not involved at the upper levels of NASCAR like that, so I can't really voice an opinion. But I will say this, and this is probably the most important element of this entire interview, is that because I believe built me to race cars, finally 9 years ago, I stepped behind the wheel of a NASCAR vehicle. So the minute I got behind the wheel of a car, call it crazy, but there were miracles happening all over that car. Wrecks we were driving through oil, all kinds of things were going on. And then finally, our track photographer got a couple of these things on film, and I never saw this coming. But I heard very clearly that I was to write a book on prayer. Never expected it at all. Didn't want to do it. I didn't feel qualified. Why on this planet am I being told to write a book about prayer? But you know what? I manned up and I did it anyway. And that book is a 2-time #1 Amazon bestseller. It's touching all around the world. And that's why we're having this interview today. I wrote a book called Prayer at Full Throttle. It's 107 pages long. It'll set everybody free. If you're struggling with a life that doesn't feel right for you, these are the powerful 107 pages you'll ever read. And it's another example of if we'll just walk into those things, whether it's racing cars or playing football or being a dentist, whatever it is on your life that you feel you're supposed to do, the great good for this planet will come through it, and it will come through in ways that you never imagined. I never dreamed that I was going to become a #1 best-selling author on the subject of prayer. And that's not a religious thing. I'm talking about speaking directly to the Creator who put you on this planet and plugging your power cord into that and watching what happens. So never underestimate the power of that desire in your heart.
You know, Robert, we've seen a lot of, quote, athletes who have been very outspoken about an assortment of religious and political beliefs. And despite the fact that you've felt so strongly about what it is you were supposed to do in writing this book, you were actually very intimidated about bringing God into it. What was the reason for that, and what made you decide to go ahead and follow through with everything that you're doing right now?
I refuse to allow fear to push me around. I mean, I was asked to write this book. It wasn't my idea. And I'll tell you, I refuse to take credit for it. The book has been ferociously successful. And if I start telling people that I did this all on my own, the whole thing is going to collapse. But if I have the guts to stand up and say, you know what, and I'm going to say this, I'm not a big fan of organized religion. I don't believe in weakness, and I don't believe in poverty, and I don't believe in all that. That's not in the book. I've read the Bible cover to cover. I will not be afraid to stand up and say, you know what, I believe in God. He put me on this planet for a purpose, and I'm going to walk into that purpose and show his power right through the palms of my hands. And hopefully by my having the guts to do that, Andrew, people will have the guts as well, and they'll step into their calling and not be afraid to tell people, you know what, I believe I was put on this planet to do this, and I'm not going to let the laughter stop me. I'm going to rise up and get her done.
You know, the latest edition that you mentioned, Prayer at Full Throttle, is one of a few books that you've written. This one that you said is only 107 pages long. Do you think that that's part of it, that it's such an easy read that most people can essentially get it done in an hour or two and kind of get what they need from it and be able to put it back and then pick it back up later with a lot of ease and not have to thumb through a lot of pages trying to find something?
Well, yeah, and that was all part of the plan, really. We did some market research on what this thing looked like and why don't people read or why don't people want to go to church and all that kind of thing. And we worked the book into a look and a length that was going to be appetizing to people. And the fact is, there's so much Bible scripture in those 7 pages that no one ever knew existed. That I've had best-selling Christian authors call me initially to scold me for what was in that book, only for them to do the research and find out everything in that book is 100% accurate. And so, yeah, in fact, it's 107 large print pages. I think the ebook runs out like at 120 pages, but a lot of people can rip this thing off in one sitting. And I'm thrilled, because it's got people in touch with their direct relationship with whoever they want to call or whatever they want to call their creator. And it's empowering people. You know, like I said, if you're into sports and you're listening to this show and you see a future for yourself in an athletic arena and people are giving you that, do you know the odds of making it in pro football, or do you know the odds of making it in pro baseball, and they discourage you. You have to understand that every person watching, whether they're playing on the New Orleans Saints or the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers, everybody that you're watching heard that same argument. They heard the same thing. You know the odds, you're never going to make it. They just didn't listen, and look where they are today. And this book gave me that kind of courage, so I'm really pleased to be associated with it.
Robert, as I do with all of my guests, I just want to be able to give you a couple of minutes to lay down the social media, how anybody can purchase the book. Obviously, you mentioned Amazon, but I'm sure there could be other avenues, and anything that basically you want to say right now to anybody out there listening. I'm just want to give you the floor and let you have at it, sir.
Oh, well, listen, thanks. And here's what I learned, and I said it earlier, that when God gives you an idea, when you're really sensing the purpose that you were put here for, and again, if you want to call God higher power or whatever you want to call him, that's your deal. That's not up to me. But I guarantee you that everybody here was put on this planet to achieve something special. And we start talking about what that thing is, and people try to discourage you or laugh at you and tell you it can't be done. I have spent my entire life proving that to be wrong. So I invite everybody to come to my website. It's robertbakke.com, B-A-K-K, robertbakke.com. Just dig around in there. You'll see all kinds of inspirational advice. You can purchase our books there. If you want a signed copy of the paperback, just go to robertbakke.com or go to Amazon. They've been wonderful for us. Prayer at Full Throttle. It's available in paperback and ebook, and I'm just telling you, the impossible can be made real just as soon as you get up and get to work. It'll be amazing.
Everybody, you just heard Robert Bakke right here on the Full Court Press. I am Drew Duncan. Robert, thank you so much for joining us today on the program. Best of luck to you in all of your future endeavors. We've got a lot more to talk about when we come back. More and more football. We'll be back right after this. This is the Full Court Press on 95.9 FM KSUN Radio, Wichita, Kansas. Don't you dare touch that dial.